unless you're a Buddhist monk. You can't always be in service. When we force ourselves to be that, because it is forced, that too reshapes our brain. Because we don't feel, as leaders, we don't feel like we matter. We don't feel like we are seen, heard, and valued. So it does start with us. So do it first at the beginning. Do it for self-serving reasons. Why not? Because long term, it's going to change you.
Welcome to Science of Leadership, the podcast dedicated to helping you become a better leader. Here, you'll gain valuable knowledge, hear inspiring stories, and learn the scientific principles that promote exceptional leadership. I'm Tom Collins, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey to becoming a better leader. Today, we're exploring an incredibly important concept, human-centered leadership. What does it mean to truly lead with empathy, trust, and purpose? How do we balance performance with people? Human-centered leadership fosters engagement, resilience, and sustainable success. But what does it take to lead with a people-first mindset in today's fast-paced and complex world? To explore this, I'm honored to be joined by Isabelle Fortin, founder of Against the Ordinary. Isabelle's experience and expertise were shaped by her service in the Royal Canadian Air Force and training in the Royal Canadian Leadership School, and she's built her leadership career on this philosophy of human-centered leadership. Today, she's sharing her insights on how leaders can create environments where people feel valued, empowered, and inspired to do their best work. Isabelle, welcome to Science of Leadership.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, let's start off with your journey. How have your experiences shaped your belief in human-centered leadership? Where did this idea come from?
It started with my transition to the civilian world because, well, I joined the military fresh out of high school. It was the family business, to tell you the truth. Both my parents were Air Force, and when I joined, my older brother was an Air Force pilot. So it was I didn't really question what I was going to do when I grew up. I just, pledged allegiance to the Queen. At the time, it was a Queen, and I just, went to boot camp, and that was the end of that. But after a decade, even though I love the sense of community, the sense of belonging, and there's nothing that brings you, at least me, purpose as much as serving my country. So that satisfied all of that. However, after a decade in, I was bored with my job, not being in the military, but the actual daily grind of the work that I had to do. And honestly, Tom, I really, really looked for another trade inside the organization that I could do and keep the uniform on and keep serving my country. But it was just nothing tickling my fancy at the time. So to your question, my first civilian job, I worked there for only 5 months, and every day I'd look at the leader and I'd go, "She don't know what the hell she's doing." And I thought it was her. I thought, "Okay, well, they promoted the wrong person, and it happens, I guess. I don't know." And so I get to the second job, and it's just more of the same. No real leadership skills. And I stayed in that job for a few years and things never got better. And as I climbed the corporate ladder inside that organization, I was, it was a big corporation. I was, dealing with more and more level of leadership. And excuse my language, but they all sucked. I thought, what the heck is happening here? Got to the third civilian job, it was still more of the same. So it took me a while to understand that the problem was the lack of leadership training. Because in the military, to get the promotion, yes, you need the skills in your trade, but you also need to have leadership training. And if you don't get to do your leadership course, you don't get that promotion. So everybody, quote unquote, leads the same way. Not really, because everybody has their own way of doing things, but the structure is similar and they all get leadership training. In the civilian world, I usually take the sales department as an example, but they'll take the best salesperson with the biggest number and they say, hey, that person understands sales. We're going to put them in charge of the sales department. And most of the time, they run the department to the ground and they lose their greatest people. Why?
Yeah.
Because selling is a skill and leadership is a whole other kind of skills. But in corporate America, there's no training. And that was blew my mind. It was just, what? How can you, as a society, how can we expect people to be good at something they've never done?
Yeah.
Let's give them the tools. And that's ultimately what brought me to what I'm doing now, is helping the leaders develop the skills, develop their empathy. We are born only 3 to 5% of people on this planet are sociopath, and basically sociopath are people that don't have the ability to feel empathic. But for the other 93 to 97%, we're born with this ability. We know how, but it's like a muscle. You need to train it. So you need tools to develop that skills. So basically, that's what got me here.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
I think you're exactly right. We see this in so many domains. That's the way it is in medicine, in my field. Um, somebody is technically a great surgeon, right? They can do a surgery beautifully. And then somebody says, well, they do great at surgeries, make them the leader of the department. Or they've got a lot of funding for science, make them the leader of the department or the dean of the College of Medicine or whatever it may be, when that has
Absolutely.
zero tie to ability to lead.
Hmm.
And so we use these metrics that have nothing to do with the capability of leading to determine who gets to be in the leadership positions. And then we wonder why organizations flounder and people are burnt out and folks want to quit their jobs and go, run B&Bs in Fiji or whatever. I think that's at the heart of it, right? So I agree with you 100%. And thinking about this idea, human-centered leadership, do you have an example that you could share where it's like, hey, here is an example where human-centered leadership really succeeded?
Oh, absolutely. I have so many, and I'll use my first one because for me, I it shaped how I lead and how I teach leadership now. So when I was a rookie in the military, I was a young private. I think I might have been either eight. I was 17 when I joined, but at that particular time, I was either 18 or 19, and I got a new sergeant in my squadron, and it was a mixed squadron, meaning full-time people, so regular force and part-time reservists. And I was full-time, but my immediate supervisor, so the sergeant, was part-time. And so the first time she showed up and she met, there was, I don't know, 18, 19 of us. So she met all of us. I was the only full-time out of the entire gang. And she was in her late the 30s by then. So she had been around the block a little bit more in life. So she looked at me and she got it. This is a headstrong, and she's either going to be my best ally or she's going to be the professional shit disturber of the squadron. And she didn't know which way I was going to go. So we met, she met the entire group, and she came in the next day, even though I was the only person there, and I wasn't expecting her. Not that it mattered. I mean, she didn't need my permission. So she showed up and she sat down, and she didn't call me by my rank. She called me by my name. And that in the military was quite rare at the time. So she sat down in my office and she said, Isabelle, in our office, she said, Isabelle, you're the only one that's full time. I'm going to rely on you a lot and rely on you to run the show and tell me how things are going and when you need help and when you need tools and support, that you're going to be upfront about it. But the way that I see it, you are either going to work for me or we're going to work together. And the choice is entirely yours. I'm an extremely headstrong person. I'm opinionated and I am not afraid to share my opinion. And I am, again, a professional shit disturber, but I understood what she meant. And I chose to work with her. And the way that she treated me, the way she empowered my natural abilities, the way that she granted me opportunities only because she knew that that was what was going to motivate me, got me to be willing to crawl through broken glass for her. And I'm still friends with her to this day. We're 3 decades later, 3.5 decades later, which doesn't make me feel any younger. So it is. She saw the human. She didn't see the rank. She didn't look at the rank. She saw the human, and she recognized that either she was gonna have to be my boss or we were gonna be partners. And she offered what she made the choice mine, basically. And that's extremely for a military setting, because
Mhm.
I was a private, I was a rookie. She could have gone the other way quite easily, but she chose the human leadership. And it truly shaped all the rest of my life. And I thank her every chance I get.
That's a great example, a great story. What I hear in it is recognition of humanness, certainly value. She made you feel valued,
Hmm.
worthwhile, important. in that there's a sense of safety, psychological safety. People talk a lot
Absolutely.
about that a lot, and seems like there's, a component of that in there too.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you're right, Dom, in your assessment of this situation is I felt like I mattered, right? And I mean, what she offered wasn't complicated. She just said, it's you choose. It's up to you. Either I outrank you by three levels of ranks. So either I'm gonna really be your boss and I'm gonna piss you off every chance I get because that's, she would have been capable, or we're just gonna be partners and we're gonna accomplish great things together. And that's what human-centered leadership is.
Yeah. Why do you think this idea of human-centered leadership is so vital? Why is it so important for leaders and for those we're leading?
I think it was the last McKinsey report that said that they can now prove that managers and leaders have a bigger impact on people's health than their medical doctors do. It's we spend all of our waking hours at work. So this is the person who quote unquote controls how great your day is going by their attitude and by the way that they treat you. And I call that the dinner table effect. So if you show up at work, you're not seen, you're not heard, you're not valued, your opinion doesn't matter, your experience doesn't matter, you're not treated like a human. How do you show up at your dinner table? How's that going with your kids and your wife or your husband? It's not going well. You're not in a good mood because you don't feel like you matter. So take the complete opposite. You go to the office and your opinion matters, not on every decision because it can't, but you're seen and you are at least heard. Even if I don't take what you offer as a solution, if I don't apply that, at least I heard you. You feel like you're seen, heard, and valued because I actually offered you that. How do you show up at your dinner table now? And that has a ripple effect in your community because it has a ripple effect on your spouse. If every time you show up at the dinner table, you got a pouty face and a foul mouth and you're unhappy, well, your wife isn't looking for, or husband isn't looking forward to eating with you every night. And your kids are keeping quiet and they're not showing you how excited they're doing at work or at the office, at school, I mean. So when the leaders are just able to open up and see the humanity in every single one of their employees or team members or whatever they want to call it, that has a big, big, big impact on the rest of their lives, their community, their neighbors, it impacts everybody. That's how you create a better world, one community at a time. And it drives profit on top of it. So I mean, come on.
Yeah, everybody does better. It's a virtuous cycle.
Yes.
Yeah. So thinking about as I've thought about this idea, I've started thinking about neuroscience, and in my book, The 4 Stars of Leadership, I share a bit about the neuroscience of leadership and how that impacts trust. And so scientific studies show that when we feel some of the things that you talked about, appreciated, supported, when people are kind to us, our brains release a hormone called oxytocin. And some people refer to that as the trust or the love hormone. It's the hormone that creates the bonding between a
Hmm.
mother and her newborn baby. It's one of the most powerful hormones in the human body. And among the things that oxytocin does, it decreases stress and anxiety. It increases feelings of trust. It strengthens relationships. And so for leaders, when we appreciate, support, and are kind to our people, that release of oxytocin reinforces all the things that we're looking for. It reinforces loyalty and engagement. It increases job satisfaction and performance. It promotes well-being. In fact, some studies have been done that have shown that oxytocin decreases PTSD.
Hmm.
I mean, there's just so much that it does. It's positive, and all of these are essential for long-term success in relationships, whether that's in leadership domains or just generally in life. It's a really important factor.
Hmm.
So that in and of itself, tremendously valuable.
Yeah, and you know what, Tom, if I can bounce off of what you just said, like a random act of kindness. So let's say you see somebody on the street, a little old lady, and you go help her cross the street or you carry her bags. So you have oxytocin because you were kind. She produces more oxytocin because you were kind to her. But it goes further than that. Anybody who witness your act of kindness, their oxytocin level goes up. And the more oxytocin we get, the less stressed we are, everything that you just mentioned, but the kinder we become. So it's a circle. I don't want to say vicious because it's positive, but
Virtuous.
it's yeah, thank you. That's the right word of just making it better. And you know what? I tell my leaders all the time, don't do it for them. Do it for you. Be selfish. Seriously, be selfish. Do it because it's good for you. And why do I say that? Because when it's good for us, we do it more. Do it because it's good for you. And I tell them it's not selfish. It's not. It looks selfish when we go, oh, I'm going to be a kind person today because it's going to make me feel better. And that's the only reason I do it. You know what? Who cares? Who cares? You're going to still have the same ripple effect on the rest of the world. So be selfish. Do it for because it's good for your body, because it lowers your stress, because it increases the number of years you're going to live and happily. It increases inside an organization, it increases productivity and increases the bottom line, the profitability by an astonishing number. It's 86%. When people feel like they are engaged in their work, that increases the bottom line by 86%. So you know what? Be kind to your people just because you're going to make more money. That's fine because the ripple effect is the same. So it's okay. For once, it's okay to be selfish. Just bring people with you.
I mean, kindness, that is interesting to think of kindness in a selfish manner, but certainly I think I think at the heart of it all, as you hit on, kindness is kind of central to this idea that we're talking about of human-centered leadership. And
Absolutely.
I mean, if we think about throughout history, those organizations, including nations, that have been unkind toward themselves, their own people, and others, it's never ended well. I mean, we don't have to look far at all to see that. We are experiencing that in the world today, and we have
And
throughout human
everywhere
history.
in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, why is it so hard to be kind? But if you can be, just as you've said, the positive impacts immeasurably better.
absolutely. And you know what? I think that we somewhere along the line, and maybe religion has a lot to do with it, but it became a sin to be self-serving, or it became a sin to be selfish, or it became. But you know what? At the same time, we'll say yes, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So I don't think that being doing it for you is a bad thing at all. Because like I said earlier, the ripple effect is good for everybody. So even if you did it only at the core, at the beginning, at least, even if you do it only for the sole purpose of increasing your bottom line, who cares? It doesn't matter because you're gonna feel better about yourself. Your employees, your team members are gonna feel better about themselves too. It's gonna have the same ripple effect, even if the original reason was self-serving. I think that it's time in this world, in this day and age, to understand that we truly need to take care of ourselves first. Because if not, you don't show up good for the rest of the world. And I know I'm going against the grain on that, and I'm okay with this because I said it twice before. I'm a professional shit disturber because it's better. The best version of you is better for the rest of the world. So why not start for selfish motivation? Why not?
It's the idea of the oxygen mask on a plane, right?
Thank
Like
you.
put it on yourself first. You know,
Yes.
if you're a disaster, you're not going to be good for anybody else. It's not
Nope.
that, and just for listeners, it's not that you're advocating in a real sense, just make it about you. That's not what
Oh
you're
no.
saying. I think you're saying to those people who are so self-centered that the only thing that they're worried about is the bottom line or so forth. Okay, do that.
Right.
But realize that if you are kind in doing that, it's going to have a lot better outcomes for you.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you know what? In a company, I mean, let's not kid ourselves, Tom. We're in business to make money. So why not do it for the money? Money is not a sin. It's what we do with money that's a sin, right? So do it. At least start.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, Tom, anybody listening who's saying, "Oh, my bottom line for the last, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters, it's not going well, and with what's going to happen now, the economy, where it seems like everybody's going into a recession. Like, how am I going to make my numbers?" Okay, well, so start with kindness, just for that reason, because long term, it's no longer going to be about that
Yeah.
because kindness is going to sneak up on you. And the more oxytocin you have, the more oxytocin you want, the more oxytocin you're going to intentionally create. And you're going to do that by being kind with others, whether they're employees or whether they're your mother in law. right? So
Yeah.
why not start with that? I chose my mother-in-law 10,000 kilometers away. That's it. Well, it's not a joke that I did it on purpose, but it is a joke that I did it on purpose, but it's not a joke that she's 10,000 kilometers away.
This as you're talking, basically the idea of just start is actually founded in neuroscience. So
Yes.
with oxytocin, if we're exposed to that chronically, our brain, the actual structure of our brains change. The gyri and sulci, the folds and ridges, if you will, in the brain change
Mhm.
as a result of trauma or as a result of remodeling from the oxytocin and recovery from trauma. And so it's a bit like maybe some folks have heard of this experiment where if you take a pencil and put it in your mouth and bite it, it forces you to use the smile muscles. And
Mhm.
you actually, just from biting the pencil, you actually will be happier because you've activated those muscles that are activated when you smile. And that is
Yep.
neuroscience. And so the same is true with oxytocin in
Mhm.
that the neuroplasticity, that's the ability of our brains to reshape, is brought into play. And so we will, even though we're being kind, if you will, out of self interest, that will become, the more we do that, that will become our modus operandi so that in the future, it's not being kind for my sake, it's being kind because that's what I have become.
Mhm.
And I think
Exactly.
that is where the magic really occurs.
Absolutely. And that's exactly to my point. It adds on to my point beautifully, Tom, because it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And you know what? We talk a lot about being servant leader and it's all good on paper. It's all truly it is. It's beautiful on paper.
Mhm.
In the daily life, in the 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, yeah, that's not really doable. You can't always be, unless you're a Buddhist monk, you can't always be in service. You can't. And when we force ourselves to be that, because it is forced, well, then that too reshapes our brain. Because we don't feel, as leaders, we don't feel like we matter. We don't feel like we are seen, heard, and valued. So it does start with us. So do it for at the beginning. Do it for self-serving reasons. Why not?
Yeah.
Because long term, it's going to change you, and that's exactly what the neuroscience is telling us.
Hey, I'm breaking into the podcast conversation here to share with you an exciting announcement. If you've been following the Science of Leadership podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about the book I've been working on. Well, I'm delighted to share that after over 3 years of work, my book, The 4 Stars of Leadership, is finally available. I'm so proud of this book and what it represents. I'm certain that you're going to find it immensely interesting and helpful as a guide on your journey to becoming a better leader. Seriously, you don't want to miss this book. I'm including a link to the book in the description. I hope you'll order your copy today. And please share it with others who might be interested. Also, please be sure to share your thoughts about the book with me. Now, let's get back to this interesting conversation on the science of leadership. Well, Isabel, how do you implement human-centered leadership in a way that balances goals and people's needs? When you do, other than the conversation we've just had, but practically when you're working with leaders, what are the recommendations you give for them to implement this idea?
The first thing that I do with any team is I do a psychometric assessment because I want to know and I want the leaders and the team members to know how their brain is wired, right? Because your cognitive preference, Tom, and mine are different, and your communication preferences are different than mine, and your behavioral preferences are different than mine. So by doing an assessment, it's like an expedited way, an expedited um, reading of the owner's manual. And once I do that, and everybody goes through that process, and everybody on the team has the 90-minute debrief on an individual basis. And regardless of who pays for my services, what is said in that 90 minutes stays between me and the person that's sharing it. Now, how to better deal with that person, knowing that information that is shared, the tools are shared. But if I'm going to talk to the leaders about being empathic and really valuing their employees on a human level, I have to offer that first, right? So when I do the debrief, I use a tool. It's from Switzerland. It's not very well known in the United States. It's called Nova. It's been in practice for 30 years, or around 30 years, and it's a very, very complete assessment. I chose this one. I've done them all, or pretty much done them all, and I chose the one that speaks to me the loudest because of what it brings, the kind of information that it brings. So after I'm done with the debrief of everybody, then I do a resume, if you will, a cheat sheet to the leaders on every single one of their employees, so that when I can meet with the leader, I can tell them, okay, well, this particular person, I won't share what was said in the meeting, but this particular person needs this kind of communication. And this person would prefer this kind of communication, because it's the job of the leader to adapt to his people, his or her people, right? The job of the leader is not to get things done. It's to take care of the people who actually do the job. That's the deal. And I think that right now we have it confused a little bit. We confuse management and leadership.
Oh my
And
goodness, yeah.
these are two different things. Now I'm
Mhm,
talking about leadership, not management. Your job as a leader is to take care of your people, provide them tools, provide them support, provide them training if that's what they need, show them skills that they don't have, and be there to support that. So once I'm done with everybody's debriefing meeting, the big debrief to the leader about all of his people, then the third thing that I do is a workshop, and I call that the prenuptial agreement, because then we come together, all of us, including me. And then I point out where the potential problems or areas of conflicts could arise. So you're extremely people, oriented, and you're the natural born cheerleader, and you're, yeah, always happy, but that happiness might come across sometimes as, oh my gosh, she's annoying, to the person who doesn't have that need. So when we all come together and they all share, and I don't share, they do, and they all share what their preference of communication is, what their cognitive preference is, how do they learn, how do we best communicate with each and every individual. What happens, Tom, is absolutely magical, because they feel recognized. They feel like they are connected on a human level. And when you're connected to somebody on a human level, and not only on the I'm waiting for your report and you didn't give me your report, and that has a ripple effect on my life because now I'm late creating my report and I don't want to be late because then it has a bad rap on me. And you know how it is. It's, I'm a little bit mad. Yeah, well, I'm a lot madder. And then, no, well, finally, I'm madder than you are. Well, then you're just a beep, right? And it escalates.
yeah.
But when we bring all of these people and they recognize their humanity, the fighting stops. Always. And then they can come up with a way that they can communicate with one another when things go badly. Because conflicts are going to arise, because, your toddler woke you up at 3 a.m. and you didn't go back to sleep, and your mother is dying, and your baby sister
Mhm,
just got diagnosed by breast cancer, because life happens. But we don't look at our humanity inside an organization. We only look at the task at hand. We only look at, this is the job and this is the place where I forget all my problems. Why, I haven't met one single human that can effectively do that, because we're humans
mhm,
first. We're humans first. So when we're treated like we're human first, then we get good at all the rest. And the other thing that it does, and that's another reason why I use this kind of tool, is it gives everybody a language, a common language that is non threatening. Because if I walk in your office, and let's say I'll take DISC as an example. The
mhm,
DISC method is the colors, the red,
mhm,
the yellow, the green, and the blue. So if I use that, and you're extremely, let's say, blue, and that's also blue is, I'm structured, I'm organized, rules are important, and I follow them to the letter. And you're at a 95 blue and I'm at a 5 blue. You and I are not speaking the same language. But if I, hand you a report and it's not up to your standard, then you can say, I'm missing a little bit of blue in this report. Imagine how non-threatening that is for me. You're
mhm,
not telling me you did a crappy job, Isabel. You're just pointing out that it's not up to your standard. So by using a common language that's non-threatening, then conflicts stop. That doesn't mean they don't happen, but it stopped being a big problem. The sentence that I hear the most by leaders is this one. They're fighting for power. They're fighting to see who's going to, you know, throw the ball the furthest, right? No, they're not. They're fighting for recognition. They want to be seen. And as a human, don't you want that?
I think everyone does.
Exactly.
As you were talking, thinking about effectively the process, and I've been through processes like that, and I think they're very helpful. As you were talking through the process, the words of Sun Tzu came to my mind, paraphrased, and so in The Art of War, my favorite maxim is know thy enemy and know thyself, and you should not fear the outcome in 100 battles. And the people we lead aren't our enemies. So if we paraphrase it, know your people and know yourself.
Yes.
You should not fear the outcome in 100 battles. And that effectively is kind of what you've described, right? First, the oracle at Delphi said, know thyself. That was the question that Socrates wrestled most vigorously with. What does it mean to know thyself? And so, first, know thyself. Second, know the other person, whether that's somebody you're leading or your adversary or what have you. But if you know those things, and if we're talking about it in a leadership context with our people, then as you say, you can speak the same language. You can
Mhm.
communicate in a way that everybody is understood and heard. And communication is one of the pillars of great leadership.
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you 100% on that. But Sunset just kept resonating in my mind as you were saying that.
And using, you know what, Tom, using any, of course, not all quote unquote personality tests. I hate that. I prefer psychometric assessment, but using any personality test out there, well, first of all, they're not all created equal. That's for sure. And there's very good ones for a few $100, and there's a very bad one at $1,500. So it's not, you'll find everything from the $30 one online to the $1,500. But you know what? One step further, it's not so much about the test. It is about the results, sure, but it's about what you do with the results. Because
Yeah,
I'm telling you, Tom, 100% of employees that I work with that have taken any kind of assessment before mine, anyone, all tell me the same thing. Yeah, yeah, I did a test similar to that a few years ago. And, my boss went gun ho on that for a week, and then it got filed in the bottom of the drawer and we never spoke about it again. So as an employee, they feel like there's a glitter of hope where they're going to be their natural abilities are going to be put in service of the organization, and then the report goes in a drawer and they go back to business as usual. So I compare these kinds of tools to a thread mill. If you put the thread mill in your basement and all it does is collect dust, well, that's the results you get. But
yeah,
if you put it in your living room, even though it's an eyesore, but every time you want to watch television, you're walking on that thread mill, the results you're going to get is incredible. But most people aren't taught what to do with the results. And that's when I come in, because I sit down with the leader and I have follow-up meetings with the leaders like, okay, so what's going on? And I don't know. I don't want to know about their work. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's not specific to an industry. It's
mhm,
specific to the humans. So, okay, so what's going on? Has there been infighting? How'd you deal with it? What tool can I show you to help you help them and be there for them? Because that's my role, is to help the leader. And I do it quite honestly for selfish reasons, because I want to have a big impact on this world.
yeah,
And if I deal with the leaders, I have a bigger impact than if I deal with people one on one.
yeah. You just hit on something that is foundational to what I'm doing. Is that I believe that it's important to have an impact, to leave a legacy of some sort, and I think that leadership is the one thing that I can identify across all human domains that if I can have some impact on that, can have the greatest uh, chance of making a positive difference in the world. So I agree. We resonate on that totally. It's interesting in preparing for today's conversation, as I was thinking about the practical things that listeners can do to be more human centered, right? To do
Right.
this thing that we're talking about. I came up with 4 keys, if you will, practices, and I think we've hit on without planning, we've hit on them as we've gone along. But just to kind of collect them for our listeners. First, be kind. Don't be a jerk. Nobody wants to work with or for a jerk.
Hmm.
Again, if we think back across life and we think about a leader that you're most willing to follow, the person you would storm hell with, it's highly likely that they were kind to you. Second, be curious. Ask more questions than you answer. Show interest in your people.
Mm.
See what they have to say. And as General Jim Mattis has told me, listen with a willingness to be persuaded.
Mm. Oh, I
Third,
love that.
oh yeah, General Mattis, I mean, he's like, I hold that dude in special regard. Third, prioritize trust, and we've talked about that. Show your team you believe in them
Mhm.
by giving them autonomy, empowering them to accomplish the mission, and
Mhm.
then to some degree get out of their way.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Finally, communicate with care. Be clear, direct, and compassionate with people. They're much more likely to hear or to listen, to hear, and to respond positively if you do
Mhm.
so. So
Mhm.
those were the 4 keys that I came up with, and again, I feel like we hit on those just naturally in our conversation.
Absolutely.
Well, Isabel, last question before we wrap up. Uh, if you go back, if you could go back and give yourself, your younger self, that private or whatever, one piece of leadership advice, what would it be?
Listen more than you speak.
It's a good one. That's a
And
good
yeah,
one.
yeah, I was just gonna say, and it isn't because you kind of just, said that. It's truly listen. And you know what? We speak faster than we can hear, like, even on a biological level. So, you need to truly be attentive to the other person to truly understand what they're saying. And I absolutely love, I cannot love it more. It's impossible. The, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And for those who don't know, Chris Voss was the FBI head, hostage negotiator for 2 decades, and he wrote a book that's called Never Split the Difference, and that's a actually very interesting title, and he explains why it's called like that in the book. But he teaches you very, very concrete things to do to truly understand the person that you are communicating with better. And tell me more about that.
Right.
And and very practical things to say and do and in what order in order to truly understand, because if you want to be empathic, regardless of what you're trying to accomplish, whether if it's to negotiate with your spouse where to go on vacation or to have your toddler eat their broccoli, it's the same human need. And it's the
Yeah.
same one with our employees or with our leaders. Chris Voss should start paying me money for every time I mention his book. But no, but seriously, it is so well written, and
Mhm.
so he offers so many practical things that you can start literally applying right now,
Mhm.
and even on his social media platforms, that it's truly worth a listen, because it is about that. And you said something about the 4 pillars, and it's listen with care. You can't fake caring about people. That don't work.
Right.
You have to care for real.
Yeah.
Care for real. Ask them for real. And after that, zip the lip. And you know what, Tom? It's the same thing when you have a one-on-one, or I call them disco calls instead of discovering calls, as discovery calls. When you have a call with somebody and you're quote unquote pitching your services, everybody does, and I'm including myself in that. Everybody makes the same mistake. Blah, 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 and I can do this and I can do that. It's like, start by listening to their needs
Yeah.
and digging a little deeper. But we don't do that.
I tell the folks that I mentor and coach that same sort of concept. Ask them what they need. How can you help them? Not what do you have to sell? Why are you
Mhm,
the best? That
mhm.
sort of thing. So,
Recently, it's just because you said something. Recently, somebody said to me, he was kind of rushing through this discovery call, and he said, "Okay, so why should I hire you instead of hiring somebody else?" And I think he was thrown by my answer. I said, "Well, I don't have the answer to that yet. I don't have enough information to tell you if I'm the right fit for you." And then his demeanor changed because he said, "Oh, okay, so this is not a pitch." I said, "No, this is not a pitch. This is a discovery. I want to know if I'm right for you and if you're right for me, because I don't
yeah.
choose to work with everybody that wants to give me money. I have a reputation, and I want to have work with people I'm going to have an impact on. And if I don't feel that I'm the right person for you, I'm not going to be impactful. And you deserve better, and so do I."
Well, thanks for sharing that. If our listeners want to learn more from you, get in touch with you, how can they do that?
I hang out. The social media preference is LinkedIn, because I find it's the Facebook for adult. I don't want to see pictures of your food. I don't care. Um, So yeah, LinkedIn, Isabelle Fortin, and there's a few of us. So look for the one with purple hair. And my website is againsttheordinary.org. and you can contact me there. Please don't tell me my website sucks. I know it's not updated. It's in the midst of getting done. In the meantime, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing those.
Thank
Isabel,
you.
it has been a delightful, informative, fun conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on the Science of Leadership today.
Thank you for having me, Dom.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Science of Leadership. We hope today's discussion has inspired you and given you valuable insights to help you become a better leader. Remember, leadership is about helping those we lead do great things. It's a journey of continual growth and learning. When we embrace that journey with curiosity, courage, and humility, we can confront challenges, overcome barriers, and foster environments where everyone can succeed. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with others who are passionate about leadership. Until next week, keep leading with character, competence, caring, and communication. This is Tom Collins. Let's keep growing.